In Lightroom, you don't save images in the traditional sense. Instead, you export them. Now, you can export photos in various file formats suitable for a wide range of uses. For example, you can export photos as JPEGs to share online or as TIFFs for, say, a print publication. Now, what we do is we export to a folder on the computer or an attached network drive, such as a flash drive. You can burn the photos to a disk after exporting so you can share them on a CD or a DVD. Now, when you export photos, you create new files that include developed module adjustments and other changes that you've made to the photo's XMP metadata. When exporting, you can choose a photo's file name, colour space, pixel dimensions and resolution. And you can save export settings out as a preset for reuse later. In addition, you can use the Publish Services panel and export and upload JPEG photos directly from Lightroom to photo sharing applications such as Flickr or Facebook. Okay, so to export photos from Lightroom to a computer or a hard drive or a flash drive, what we need to do is to follow a couple of basic steps. Now, the first of these steps is to select the photos that you want to export. Now, you can do this in a variety of manners, but let's just say I've got some images here that I took when we were practicing a little bit of bokeh photography. And let's say I want to export some of these to send to somebody. Okay, well, I need to select the images. Now, I can select images that are not next to each other by holding down the Control key or the Command key on a Mac. And I've just clicked the first image. So I'm going to hold the Control key down and I'll click that image. And I'll click that image. And I'll say, well, I want that one as well. Click that one. And I'll click that one. If I make a mistake, I've still got the Control key or Command key down. And I'll just click one of those that I've selected and it will deselect it. But I'll select that one again. So that's selecting what they call discontiguous images, those images that are not next to each other. But what happens if you want to select images that are next to each other? Well, I'll just do the same again. I'll click on the first image, but this time I'll hold the Shift key down and I'll click on the last image that I want, and that will select everything in between. Now I've got all the images selected that I want to export, and now I can either click the export button, which is here, or I can go up to the file menu and select export from this menu, or there's a keyboard shortcut of Control or Command Shift and E if you're on a Mac. I'll just click that and it'll open up the export dialog. And here it is. Now, if yours doesn't look the same as this, these little triangles here are called disclosure triangles, and it's like having a closed up folder. So if I click on that, the little arrow will point down and it opens it up. So the first thing to do is to go and click each one of these until they're all closed like this, because it's an easier way to start from. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one, export location. I'll click to open that, and I'm going to select export to. I'm going to select specific folder because I'm going to tell it exactly where I want to send these images to. Then you'll see we've got a folder structure here. So I'm going to click the choose, and then I'm going to navigate to my desktop and click on that. And then I'm going to click select folder. So that's now saying my root folder is going to be my desktop. Now I'd like to keep the images, rather than cluttering up my desktop, I'd like to keep them in one place. So I'm going to put a tick in put in subfolder, and then I'm going to click and I'm going to type bokeh. So that's the bokeh shot. So it's going to create a subfolder and put these images in it. Now I don't want to add them to the catalogue, so I'm not going to put a tick in there. I don't want to add them to the stack. And where it comes to existing files, I'm just going to leave that set to ask what to do. Okay, that's the first step done. So I'm just going to click to close up that to keep it nice and tidy. And I'm going to click on file naming. Now file name, and if you don't want to file name, you just leave that one unticked and it will just use the camera generated names that's in your camera. But let's imagine I do. I'm going to click on that, and then we've got some options of some different renaming templates. Now the most popular and the best way, well, I think the simplest way to go is the custom name sequence. So I'm going to click on that. And on this one, you can put some custom text in and a start number. So again, I'm going to type Bokeh in there, because I want each file name to begin with the word Bokeh, and I'll start it at number 1. Gives me a little example here, so these are going to go Bokeh 1, Bokeh 2, Bokeh 3, Bokeh 4, like that. And the extensions I'll just set to lowercase. Okay, we're cooking with gas. Now we've got as files renamed. We've got video. Well, this isn't a video, so we really don't need to do anything in this section. Next one down, file settings. Here I can choose what file output do I want. So do I want it as a JPEG, a PSD, TIFF, DNG, or whatever the original file format was. Let's imagine this is for the internet, so I'm going to select JPEG. Colour space, it'll depend on really what your output is for this, if you're going to print it or you're sending it to a print firm. But the majority of times, a goodly percentage, SRB works fine. Quality, I'm going to leave up to 100, and I don't want to limit the file size, so I'm not going to put a tick in this box. Okay, that's file settings done. Image sizing, this is an important one. Do I want to resize my image? Well, yeah, if I don't put a tick in there, what will happen is it'll just export at the full size of the image that I've got, from if it's a full-size JPEG or a full-size JPEG from a DNG. But let's say I do want to resize this. This is going on, let's say, Facebook. So I can click resize to fit, and then I've got some options on how to want to resize. You can just do it with the dimensions, you can do it on the long edge, the short edge, how many megapixels, or a percentage. My favourite one, I think, is the width and the height. I don't want to enlarge the image, so I'm not going to put a tick in this box because I'm wanting to make the image smaller. And then I type in the width and the height in whatever units I've selected. I'm going to select pixels. And then you see I've got in here 800 pixels and 800 pixels. Now this isn't going to give me a square image. What it will mean is that whichever is the longest edge, it will make that 800 pixels. Now resolution depends on what you're doing with the image. If this is for digital use, like on a website or to email, then what goes in here, it doesn't matter. You can leave it set. This one says 72 as a start point. You could just leave it set at that. If you were printing this image, then you would need somewhere between 240 and 300 pixels per inch in this box. But this is for a digital use, so it doesn't really matter what's in there. Okay, that's all set. I've now got my output sharpening. If you don't want it to sharpen, just take that tick out. If you do want some sharpening, you have 3 options: for screen, for matte paper, or glossy. Well, this is going on the internet, so I'll settle for screen. The amount of sharpening, well, we've got 3 sets in Lightroom. We've got a lower, standard and a high. Low, to be honest, tends hardly to be noticeable. Standard seems fine, and high sometimes goes a bit over the top. So I'm going to settle for standard on this one because I want it sharpening. I'll just keep closing these down to keep it nice and tidy. And then the metadata. What metadata do I want including and embedding in each image? Well, I generally choose all, but you can just have the copyright only, copyright and your contact information, all except camera and camera raw info, or all metadata. Well, I'll just leave that set to all metadata. Now you can, if you don't really want your personal information or your location information disclosed, then you can keep a tick in both of these and it will remove your personal information and remove your location info. Okay, that's all we need to do in there. Watermarking. If you don't want to watermark, just untick. If you do need to watermark, put a tick in that, and then you can select from the watermarks that you will have created. Or there is a simple copyright watermark that comes preloaded with Lightroom. I've got one that I'm going to keep on this, so I've got my KF watermark graphical. And then finally we've got post-processing. Just after this image is exported, what do I want to do with it? Now there's a couple of choices. You can show it in Explorer, you can open in whatever application you've got connected. Here I've got Photoshop CC 2017, there's a portrait, there's whatever you've got will appear in here. Or you may need to run an action, and you can place actions in a specific folder, and so it will run a specific action. Like if you've got your own proprietary sharpening action, you could run that after each export. I'm happy at the moment just to say do nothing, because then I can choose where I want to put the image, whether I want to do any more on it later. And that's it, that's our export set up. And important at the top, where we export to, well, you can export to different places, but we're going to export this obviously to the hard drive. Now it would seem all we need to do now is click export, and that will do the trick. It will export all these images to the specification that I've done here. But I don't want to be redoing this every time I do an export. Now this is a specific export for, let's say, Facebook. So there's going to be a time in the future where I'm going to want to export to Facebook again. So instead of just clicking export and redoing this next time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it out as a preset. So I'm going to click on this add button here, and I'm going to give this a name called, let's say, Facebook. I'm going to save it in the user presets folder, and then I'm going to click create. And if you look over here under user presets, you can see I've now got a Facebook preset. So I can click cancel now, because I don't want to export with this specific preset here. But now exporting becomes a whole lot simpler, because all you do is select the images that you want to export, which I've done. And then we go up to the file menu, and we can, rather than export, we can now do export with preset. And you can see here are some of the presets that ship, but down under user presets here, we've got the Facebook preset, which is the one I've just made. And if I click on that, you'll see up at the top here, it's now exporting my 8 files to the specification in the export preset, onto the desktop and into a subfolder. Okay, now if we just minimize Lightroom and just have a look at what we've done, you can see here I've got a folder on the desktop called bokeh, and if I double click that, it'll open up each of these images, and there they are, bokeh 1, all renamed, bokeh 1, bokeh 2, bokeh 3, right through to bokeh 8. And I know it's hard to see, but they have got my little logo on down in that bottom corner, because I asked them to watermark it. I'll just bring Lightroom back. Well, that wraps up our discussion on exporting from Lightroom. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that when I release another video, you're the first to know. If you liked it, share it with a friend or two, or leave me a comment underneath the video in the notes field. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.